always loving Wednesdays. Mr. Earl back there giving us some good music for us to listen to. Happy Wednesday and welcome to Rick's Room. It is time on deck 8:04, just after 8 o'clock. Some of you all might be heading to your room, but I appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with me in Rick's Room. I'm your host, Mr. Rick. And, we made it to Wednesday. So it's time to kind of hang out a little bit, get the first half of the week off of us and get prepared for the last half of the week and get ready for the weekend. That's what Wednesday is. So happy Wednesday to all you all that are joining us. I appreciate you stopping by my room and hanging out for a little bit, talking about some of the things that we're talking about. And apparently there's a lot of you all who are excited about this conversation that we're having tonight. So I'm looking forward to getting into this discussion, this topic. Before we do, a couple of things that I want to make sure I get a chance to do, because y'all know, this show is important to me, and I got to make sure that the people that are sponsoring this show get their due. But what I decided to do from a lot of feedback, based on a lot of feedback that I got, was kind of break up some of those sponsors. So we'll talk about the people that are sponsoring the show here in just a bit. And I want to make sure that I get a chance to let you all know who's here with me today. This is one of the infamous individuals that I've got a chance to meet, hang out with, and get to know. We'll get to him in just a second. But real quick, this show tonight is being sponsored in part by Mind Over Matter. Mom offers holistic that focus on healing the whole you, mind, body, and soul. And y'all know that they're running this promotion, right? We talked about this last week. They got a promotion, receive 20% off Refreshing Moments Simply Clean Facial or 20% off Refreshing Moments Back Treatment. December 23rd, just by mentioning Rick's Room during your initial correspondence. Check out what Mom can do for you at www.momonline.us. That's www.momonline.us. Make sure you check them out. Let them know that Rick sent you for one of the promotions that's running all the way until December 23rd. So tonight's topic is something that we're talking about in this month of November, identifying privilege. And I want to make sure that we tackle all kinds of privileges. But tonight's a special night because so many people are excited about this conversation. We're going to talk about racial privilege tonight. And I'm going to talk about racial privilege with one of my good friends here. His name is Mike, but I'll let him introduce himself to you. We know him, at least I know him as Yak, but I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself to you. Mike, tell the viewers, as well as, before we do that, wave to the Facebook viewers. Those are Facebook fans over there that's watching us. Hey, y'all, how y'all doing? Good to see you. Yeah, see you, pretty boy. Then we got YouTube and IntellectualRadio.com right here. Wave to them over there. Say what's up, what's going on. Thanks for swinging by the room. Mike, tell us about yourself, a little bit about your history and who you are.
My name is Mike. So my history, what do you mean?
Just tell us, a little bit about where you come from. Are you Chicago native? Are you
first generation American?
Okay.
I grew up in Detroit. Have been in Chicago now for 6 years-ish.
Yes, sir. And Mike and I, we worked together. About a couple of years ago, maybe almost 2 years. Almost 2 years. It'll be
no. I left like 6 months ago.
Oh, well, but we still
felt like 2 years.
We've known each other for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep. Mike is definitely one of the guys that he reached out to me and said, "Man, I want to be on your show." And I was like, "I got the perfect conversation for you."
It's not true. He reached out to me.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I had to reach out to him and talk about the show. Like, can I get you on the show?
He was trying to plug my picture.
Listen, if you all saw the post on Facebook in this picture, it was options. He gave me a couple of options, but I went with the best one that I thought would work out best for us. So Mike is here in the room. We definitely got our adult beverages. So make sure you got your adult beverage, because you in Rick's Room. It is Happy Wednesday, Happy Hump Day, Happy Midweek. We got a little vodka tonight, and we want you to make sure that you have a beverage as well. Make sure that you all are aware that the Bureau Bar over at 75th East 16th Street is offering a great promotion every Sunday. Check out Sunday's Affair with your host, Mr. Jeff Timms, offering craft cocktails, again, located at 75 East 16th, from 3 to 12. 3 to 12, they got a happy hour from 3 to 5 p.m., and some of the soulful music stylings from Fathom DJ starting at 5 p.m. Make sure you swing by there and enjoy one of our other sponsors we'll talk about a little bit later. The Cookout on Wheels will be there from 6 to 9. And if you happen to mention that you know Rick, if you happen to give him Rick's Room sent you, you'll get half off your first drink. Yo, you got to check it out. You got to check it out. So Sundays. Sundays, half off your first round at the Bureau Bar with Mr. Jeff Timms, 75 East 16th Street from 3 to 12. Happy hour from 3 to 5. Music from Fathom DJ starting at 5, and then the Cookout on Wheels from 6 to 9. Check them out at the Bureau Bar. And real quick, you all might have seen that Miguel was going to be joining us, Miguel Trujillo, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it to it with us tonight. His sister had some things that he needed to attend to, so we want to make sure that we send out our thoughts and prayers to him and his family for not being able to join with us tonight. But Miguel, we know you wanted to be here with us, but your family is important, so make sure you take care of your sister. Shout out to her as well for speedy recovery. Turned out well for her. So that's why Miguel is not with us, although he had a lot of opinions, and I hear that you all do too. So we got your comments here on Facebook. Mike is going to be in charge of reading your comments. We'll see what happens.
Keep them PG-13.
Keeping it PG-13. And that being said, make sure you're talking to your mic there too.
My bad.
Right, okay. So with that being said too, I want to make sure that you all are aware. Now, this is a conversation, Mike, that everybody's excited about talking about, man.
Except for me.
You were excited about it, but so was everybody else. Like,
Okay.
there have been several posts about people ready to call in and talk about, racial privilege or whatever. Sure. And I got to make sure that you all understand that this is Rick's Room. And in Rick's Room, yeah, we got adult beverages. Yeah, we're cool. We have our opinions, and we'll have conversation. And I encourage you to call in and do the same, 708-223-8953. But when you call in, please remember, there's a couple of things that you got to be mindful of. This is my room, and you got to be respectful. Your opinion is your opinion, but make sure that you keep it respectful. All right. Make sure that we've already agreed. We're just having a conversation. But if you want to join in this conversation, make sure that you keep it respectful in your opinions. And this is a profanity-free zone. All right, this is a profanity. Look, Mike he's already having problems with this. We gotta limit his he's rushing. That vodka might get to him in a minute, but make sure that we keep it a profanity-free zone. All right, so if you call in, you got your opinions, you're more than welcome to share with us, but make sure you use your adult words. Words might include profanity. So make sure you're using your educated words. Your educated words are better to use in this conversation, but we're talking about racial privilege this evening. So Mike, you wanted to be on this show, and I appreciate you spending some time with me here. Let's get into this. There's privilege that we want to identify, and that's what the whole month is dedicated to, talking about privilege. And last week we talked about gender privilege. Oh, by the way, you might be able to help me with this because you're a guy. We were talking about gender.
Accurate.
Yeah, right,
That's
right,
accurate.
right. We were talking about gender privilege last week, and something came up today in a conversation. I wanted to make sure to shout this out too as well. That should have been covered on gender privilege. It's hard for guys to go to a club in like Miami, like $50, $100 to go into a club in Miami because
Agreed.
We're guys.
Yeah.
Gender
in
privilege.
Vegas.
Hashtag women, y'all get in for free to clubs because y'all are females. I gotta pay $50 or $100, get a whole 3 bottles of alcohol just because I'm a guy. What is that? Gender privilege. But let's get into racial privilege a little bit, man. Let's talk about racial privilege. So Mike, you have different privileges, right? Now, you grew up in Detroit, so there might be some privileges that I could be afforded in the community that you grew up in.
Sure.
Right. But let's talk about, from your perspective, what are some of the privileges that you think that you can identify that you have just based off of your race?
I mean, that's obvious. It's Creek, right? I've rarely been pulled over by a cop in my life, right?
Okay.
I don't go into a room and have to, I guess, kind of assume that people have assumptions about me.
Okay.
I can talk my mind. There's obvious privileges of being a white male in today's society, right?
There are, and so let's start. And you and I, this is a great place to start. So you and I, we work together. Yep. So the best place to start for us is privileges in the workplace. Now, without identifying
sure
where we worked. Shout out to any of you all, coworkers, ex-coworkers that are watching. We appreciate it.
And if you want to leave,
hit
me up.
Hey, stop it. So privileges in the workplace, right? There are certain privileges that are afforded to different races in the workplace.
So this is an interesting one for you to start with, right?
Okay.
Because this kind of ties back into what I wanted to talk about in general when it comes to privilege, but I'll bring that in later, right?
Okay.
When we're talking about white privilege, right?
Okay.
Or any kind of privilege.
Sure.
When it comes to the workplace, right? Me and you work a similar job, white collar job, client facing job.
Let's call it client facing. I don't know if I call it white collar.
It's definitely white collar.
Is it white collar?
You wear a collar, right?
But is it white collar? Like
bro, you're wearing a white collar.
I mean, that's today. That's only today because I wanted it to look good with a suit jacket.
No, it's definitely white collar. We're sitting behind a desk. Or
Okay.
we're going to a bank. We're meeting with CEOs, right?
Right.
We're not working with hard boots. We're not working with our hands, right?
Okay, so that would consider it being. I got you. All right,
sure,
cool.
Sure. So my father, right?
And
people, and I don't know if people know this about me, but I'm first generation American. I mentioned that in the beginning. My father speaks with a heavy accent, right?
Okay.
Not be hired for the job me and you had, right?
Okay.
He's definitely a white male. Right. So I think when you're speaking about white privilege, to generalize me, obviously, right? Obviously, I have privilege. My name is Mike. I speak without an accent, right? But I think it gets more. You have to think more deep about it when you're talking about someone like my father or someone who grows up in trailer parks in Mississippi, right?
Sure.
Sure. There's a definite elitist status even within the white community that they would not be able to get into, right?
So. Wait, okay, first generation, your father speaks with a heavy accent.
Correct.
But now you also, I presume, would have to, your last name is Yakai.
Sure.
Right? Has that actually been, something that you've had to be cognizant of in the workplace?
Maybe.
I mean, in the job setting that we were in, you were doing a lot of client facing, right? So, and I'll have to speak from my own experience. I do think that, in the industry that we are or we're in, there is an understanding that I had to accept that I am competing with, my white counterparts.
Sure.
So in the workplace, yes, there are privileges that are afforded to my white counterparts, and probably just,
of course,
just corporate America in general.
100%.
Right, but there are privileges that are afforded that I don't. That I have to be
correct,
right? Okay, great.
Correct.
So, but you have the last name of Yakine. What I mean? Like, I would presume that there would still be and other privileges that aren't, I guess, American white versus European white.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think that
European white, is that a thing?
I don't think I'm a fair analysis, right?
Okay.
I grew up in America. I had an American education, right? But I also didn't grow up in Mississippi in a trailer, right?
Yeah.
There's different levels of white. You know about Macomb, Michigan, right?
No.
The place they voted for Obama for 8 years, and then they just voted
for Trump. Yeah.
Right?
Yes. I remember that.
So downriver, Detroit, people from that area, very identifiable. Okay. You could tell if somebody's from that area, and it's a lower income area, right?
Okay.
I do not think that they would be able to get a job like me and you had. They speak with a certain accent. People would judge them. They would consider them white trash.
So what you're saying, it sounds like, is that it's not just necessarily a racial.
I think it's also a class thing, right?
Okay. In the workplace.
In the workplace, 100%.
Okay.
100%. If you speak articulate, right, people have certain assumptions about you.
Right.
So
let's get into that for a second. When we talk about people being able to speak articulately, that's but
not me, obviously.
But you're doing good so far.
Thank
you. You're doing good so far.
I'm trying not to swear.
Right. And you're using educated words.
Exactly.
You got to do that. And we definitely encourage you to call in and use your educated words and join in the conversation. 708-223-8953. Mr. Matt Owens, I see you. And listen, so Matt Owens, if you were watching us or here on Facebook, again, if you're watching here on Facebook, Matt Owens is actually one of the reasons that this particular conversation was intriguing to me about privilege and his dedication to identifying privilege, white privilege versus just privilege in general, and then it got carried on to some of my good friends that I work with that I've got a chance to hang out with in Austin, Texas, on the Cookout on Wheels. We were having a whole conversation about privilege, but it's a conversation that needs to happen, that everybody needs to be able to comfortably but uncomfortably talk about. And Matt says race and class privilege, while very closely, are also quite different. Immigrant workers and low income or working class whites still have white privilege, though they may suffer from class injustices.
Agreed, 100%.
Right.
I mean, but if we're talking about the workplace, right? What is the difference then?
I mean, in the workplace, you do have differences. You have the obvious, outside appearances as well as the class privilege.
Sure.
Differences.
Sure. But if my father's never going to get hired for our job, how would you know the difference, right?
True. Well, but you would know the difference because of how he speaks, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we got a caller already ready to chime into this conversation. Right. No caller. Okay. Never mind. We don't have a caller. Just kidding. Right. Exactly.
No. Look, I think, and me and you, we work in staffing, so we have a unique perspective, right? I really think that there is white privilege, right? I think that me having the name Mike, I think that me looking the way I do, people have certain assumptions when I'm not. They assume that I came from a certain atmosphere, right?
Right.
I think for college-educated white liberals to forget about some of the people in the white community. Okay. I was one of those white liberals, right? I don't know Matt. I looked at his Facebook, right? Okay. Because you mentioned that he was the reason that you had this podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, the reason this conversation came up.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So I looked at him, and I don't know his background. I don't want to make any assumptions about him, but he's a similar guy to me, right? Guy, he looks like he's clean cut.
Matt's pretty quick. Pretty. Yeah. I'll give you that, Matt. Shout out to Matt Owens.
Clean cut. Yeah. Right? I think comparing me to you is not a fair comparison, right?
Sure.
When we think white privilege, we think me, and we think you, and we think Matt, right?
Oh. I don't know into that.
Well, no. I'm saying the differences, right?
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I'm a white guy, you're a black guy, generic, right?
Hold on 1 second before you go in. I need to interrupt real quick. Mr. Earl, y'all don't see Earl always back there doing his thing and producing and making sure we sound good. Earl, it sounds like a couple of people have been trying to call in and the phone line isn't working. But Earl said the phone line is working. So if you want to call in, go ahead and give us a try again. 708-223-8953. Sorry about that. So when you think you, Matt, pretty much, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think that
it's because you have blue eyes, but whatever.
I know. I think that there's a certain segment of the white population, right? When I try to explain white privilege to somebody like my father, and my father's background, and the reason I keep bringing him up is he grew up in the Soviet Union, right?
Okay.
When he came to America, he lived in one of the worst parts of Detroit, and he thought he made it, right? There's a story my mom used to tell me. When she came to America, they gave her food stamps. She went to a grocery store. She started crying. Here, and they were like, yeah, she's like, I love America, right?
Wow.
So I think it's a matter of perspective, right?
Okay.
If you're talking to a guy like my father, it's hard to tell him that the guy has privilege, right?
Okay.
The guy's lived in the worst parts of Detroit, and for him that was heaven compared to Soviet Russia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a matter of perspective. I think that people who live, in a low-income community in rural America to see that they have privilege, right?
Okay.
They don't have a lot of the opportunities that people in the south side of Chicago don't, right?
Right.
So.
Right. And good point. Let me interrupt you. Looks like we do have a caller in this time. Let's go ahead and get this caller started here. This is Rick's Room. You're on the mic with Rick and Mike. I like that. On the mic with Rick and Mike.
Yeah.
There. Who do we got calling in today? Lexi. Oh, it's Lexi.
What up, Lexi?
What's going on, Lex? So some of y'all that don't know.
What's up, Rick and Mike?
Lex worked in the building with us as well. Worked. Exactly.
Yeah.
It seems like everybody's leaving the building except for me, but whatever. What's going on, Lex? What you got for us?
I had to tune in with my two favorite people at 125.
Southwacker. What you got for us, Lex? What's your input on racial privilege? Because I know you being opinionated.
You have some strong feelings.
You got some strong feelings. So talk to us a little bit.
Mike, I got a question. You made the statement about your father having a heavy accent and not being able to maybe work for the company you all work for.
Sure.
And it's different from being maybe in a trailer environment in Mississippi. I agree with that. When you may be labeled as an immigrant or a foreigner coming to America, you might be looked at different.
Or white trash.
But if you have a black, also that trailer park mentality and competing for the same position that a white individual is, that's trailer park mentality, I can guarantee you that white individual will get that.
And I'm not going to argue with you.
Whether qualified.
And I'm not going to argue with
that
you.
Black person, even though they're in the same low income poverty environment.
And I agree with you, right? I think that there are certain segments, or there are certain type of classes, and your buddy mentioned that class and race is a different thing, but I think that there are certain type of classes that excel more within a community, right?
Right.
If you look at like Morgan Freeman, you ever see Morgan Freeman on like Fox News? He doesn't. So Morgan Freeman, or Lil Wayne for that matter, like those guys don't think racism exists. The reason they don't think racism exists is because they live in their mansions in LA, right?
Right.
They're not living like the average African American or even the average white person in America, right?
Right.
So I think that there is different classes, and I think that being the lowest class of white, obviously, if there's a white hiring manager and he's the one interviewing you, your chances are going to be better than somebody who's African American who's from a similar socioeconomic background.
Absolutely. That's just like recently, I think Lil Wayne had an interview about white privilege. And he went through a whole thing about, it doesn't affect me. And people were really upset with him. But people also got to realize his class, the money he makes, of course, labeled as that black guy because he's in a whole different industry. But if you look or in a position as rich, it'd be a whole different level that he would have to hold up to or to fight against, for just a position where people going through a position against you, even if you were underqualified.
I agree.
The color of his skin, it will be no. Or just how his name is said. It's sometimes that you can just be Michael Johnson and then you have Shaniqua.
Oops.
It's just like, automatically.
Hey.
Shaniqua may be more qualified.
I mean, look. Yo, real talk. We go with name privilege.
Name privilege
is a thing.
It
really is a thing, and that also kind of correlates into racial privilege, especially between black and white,
and class privilege,
or even Hispanic. Because
if your name's Billy Joe,
exactly,
the third.
And right? I was hoping Miguel could be on the show, but unfortunately he's not. But even from a different, the Latino community, like there are certain privileges that are afforded to them in the workplace. Unfortunately that we don't have because of the perception of the work ethic between the races of people. So
look, and my parents by design changed my name to be American, right?
Okay.
I was named after my grandfather, who's Mikhail, right? Okay. They made me Mike so I could be more gentrified, so I could get a job like this and I could live in the burbs and whatever, right?
Do you live in the burbs?
No, I don't live in the burbs. That's the dream, right?
Hold on, before you go on, Lexi, listen, we gotta let you go, darling, but I appreciate you calling in. Thank you for watching. And I miss you. I miss you.
Cool, Rick. Y'all have a good one.
All right, Lex. Thanks for calling in, dog. Take care of yourself.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right. But yeah, no, it's definitely when it comes to the gentrification of names, I guess it is. Is that a thing?
It is.
Is that what it is? Yeah, we can use that. But in the workplace, especially when it comes to not even just corporate America, but corporate America, we can use that. There is a level of privilege that is afforded, and Lexi's right. There. And you and I think we talked about this once in when we were doing some client facing. There's some things that you don't have to worry about,
of course,
that I do. But I attribute. I mean, I'm glad that my parents decided to name me Rick Lockhart.
Sure.
So that Rick Lockhart is it looks good, or even Kenneth. Yeah. That's the only time I'm gonna put the government out there. All right, none of you all are allowed to call me Kenneth ever. However. But anyway, so yeah, it's definitely something in the workplace that we need to be. Go ahead.
So I mean, and let me tie this into why I think this is not a good issue for us to talk about constantly, right? I think that your viewers, my friends, your friends, we all, I think most people that I associate with would identify that there's white privilege, right?
Probably, yeah.
I don't know if that.
I mean, you in Detroit?
Yeah, in Detroit, no. Right?
Okay.
People I associate with in Chicago, right?
Okay.
I think that the problem is though when we say that there's white privilege, we paint a coat over white people, right? I was watching the Black Lives Matter. Did you see this where they came on? There was like a pro-Trump thing and a Black Lives Matter thing, and they came on stage and the guy was like, "I love Jesus, I love guns. I love my family." No, the Black Lives Matter.
I didn't see this at all.
And the Trump guys were like, "Yeah, I love all that shit too. I love all that stuff too," right? It was like it's a beautiful video.
You have to send it to me.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. And one of the reasons like MLK was successful, right? A lot of minorities, they backed him. Right. Mm-hmm. He was able to, the Jewish community was behind him, the Asian community.
Right.
I think that there's things that affect the lower socioeconomic segments of white culture in the United States, right?
Sure.
Talk about white privilege, we kind of coat that, and the problem is those people became angry. I didn't understand why so many people voted for Trump, right?
Right.
But when you talk about white privilege, you don't talk about the guy who has no opportunities in rural Mississippi, right?
Of course not. Right. Exactly. But there are still privileges afforded to that guy.
Well,
yes.
I mean,
but my family being from Mississippi, one of the places I say this all the time jokingly, I don't want to go to Mississippi. Like I have roots in Mississippi. I don't want to go to Mississippi. Like they have dirt roads.
And they can smell the Jew in me.
It was but it's Mississippi. Like even though I got family down there, I got roots down there. Shout out to my family down in Mississippi. If you're watching, let me scroll through it. Didn't look like you are, but it's fine. Mississippi just is not my cup of tea because of the unawareness of the privilege that's afforded.
And you have to understand that though, right? You have to.
Because I'm just from the north.
Well, you have to understand if you're trying to make it day to day, right?
Right.
And your son may be locked up, or you have problems that come with being in poverty, right?
Of course, in poverty, yeah, they're problems.
If you tell that person that they have white privilege, right? I've always tried to explain the fact of white privilege to my family, right?
How do you explain it?
They don't understand it.
Of course they don't.
They don't understand it.
Because privilege, you don't, that's what privilege is. You don't even know that it's afforded to you.
No, I disagree, right?
What?
I disagree because I up until a few months ago, up until I saw that video, I thought, I'm a white guy, right?
Okay.
I have all the privilege. I don't understand why these white people don't see what I see, right?
Okay.
And I said this a little bit earlier. I think it's easy as a college educated, liberal white guy who has a white collar job to forget about certain things that other people go through, right? To tell somebody who is living in poverty that they are privileged, right, it's not fair, right? Because a lot of people are going through the same thing that people.
Well, but see, okay, now here's where I would disagree with it not being fair. It's not that it's not fair for them to. When it comes to privilege, yes, they're in poverty. Like you and I can live in poverty. You and I can work white collar jobs. That doesn't change the fact that there are still privileges that are afforded to you because of the color of your skin versus me.
Sure.
Same thing happens in poverty. It's not that it's a class thing. There are certain privileges that a white man in poverty doesn't have to doesn't worry about, but a black man in poverty does. Yeah, we're still in poverty together.
When it comes to like law enforcement and everything, right? But when it comes to opportunity, there's parts of this country where white people don't have opportunity to excel, right?
Well, true. But what I want to do is move into the next topic because you brought up something. Topic the privilege in the judicial system. Right, the privilege that takes place in the judicial system. But before I get into that, I want to make sure that I kind of give a shout out and make sure that you all know that this show is also being sponsored by, yes, I got to do it, by the Color Struck Polish. Ladies, if you are, this advertisement was written towards the ladies, but I want, there might be some fellas out there that are rocking, some colorful nail polish. So, if you're interested in a new luxurious nail polish brand that's less harsh on your nails, Color Struck Polish is perfect for you. It's less toxic than some of your major market brands and doesn't leave the damaging effects of gel nails while offering 35 eye-catching colors. Find out more about the brand by visiting www.colorstruckpolish.com to find out which color strikes you. Nail polish hey, some people wear nail polish. I mean, it could be even clear brand. They might have a clear brand for, the healthy nail look. But check out Color Struck Polish. And again, if you want to join in the conversation, 708-223-8953. It's a great time to jump in because we're about to get into privilege in the judicial system. Now, this is a deep conversation. And just so you all know, whether you're watching on Facebook, IntellectualRadio.com, listening on iHeart, whatever the case may be that you're tuning in, this conversation is going to be elongated. So we're going to talk about this again next week too. So if you didn't get a chance to talk about it this week, we're going to talk about it next week as well. But now we're going to get into the judicial system because there's privilege in the judicial system. Right? We can talk about it all day long. That's why the Black Lives Matter movement was started. That's why Black Panthers were there to be able to equate what privilege is out there afforded to whites versus blacks or lack thereof. There is privilege in the judicial system. So, Mike, I guess we can start this off by when you mention, that there's privilege that we need to be aware of there, right?
100%.
Okay. So for our viewers that are there, I'm interested to hear what these comments are going to be. Let's go into this. What are some of the experiences that you may have had in the past growing up? Maybe Detroit versus Chicago even. But what are some of the experiences that you've had that have been privileged, that you identified as privileged? Because I know I got one.
Look, I mean, I think it's privileged every time I get pulled over and don't have to worry about my life, right? I mean, when a cop pulls me over, it's usually nice. They usually don't search my car, right? I understand that. I think that's a structural problem, though. I think that is stemming from cops that are not from the communities that they're in, policing the communities that they're in, right?
Okay.
If somebody who grew up in Buffalo Grove is policing the south side of Chicago, right? They don't have any community ties there, so it's easier for them to pull the trigger, right? Niece to the nephew or the niece to the nephew's friends, it'll be a little bit harder. Yeah.
So I was, in the judicial system, I have to. Parents, specifically my mother. Shout out to my mother for.
What's her name?
My mother?
Yeah,
Sharon.
Shout out to Sharon.
for making sure that I grew up in an environment where I can identify and be able to maneuver through different cultures and environments. But I have to. So I'm going to share this, and y'all don't tell my mother this because she's not on Facebook. But listen, don't tell her this. I got pulled over once before, and I take that back. I'm sorry, I wasn't pulled over. I was off on the side of the street, knocked out. Right, had been out long night of drinking, and this was a time in my life where I was actually, this was something that I did. I would pull over on the side of the road and take a nap with no regard. Like I had no problem. Just had enough to drink, trying to drive home, can't drive home. Let me pull over and take a nap. And I took a nap, and this has happened like actually twice. But being waking up by just the knock on the window, hey, you can't sleep here. One in particular situation I remember. I had a Malibu 2000. I don't know if y'all had Malibu 2000s. If you remember, Malibu 2000 had a cup holder right on the side of the driver's steering wheel, right? So I just left the bar. I got it to go, a little beer. I put it there, made it right across from Chicago into Oak Park, pulled over. The sun's coming up now. When I went to sleep, the sun was actually not even existent. But I woke up and the sun was coming up. Police officer knocked on the window. Beer open right here next to the driver's seat. Right. He said, there was a dent in my bumper. He said, you sleeping it off? And I said, yeah, I'm sleeping it off. He said, pour that out. He said, did you hit anything? I said, I didn't hit anything. I said, all right, pour that out. And he drove off. And this happened a couple of times. This is like that was like the first time it happened. It happened like maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. In the judicial system,
you have a problem when.
Right, exactly. Whatever. I would like to believe, I was afforded the privilege of being able to, even in that situation, be articulate enough to maybe that was a privilege. But for me, I had to think that could have. I had to identify with this white police officer so that he knew that I wasn't a threat to him.
Sure.
He knew that I was not there. I wasn't belligerent. He knew he would feel comfortable with me. The privilege in the judicial system, and we can get to the conversation about the being in court or whatever. But in that regard, that specific situation, I had to put on that face. And that's white privilege. That right there is white privilege that you don't have to worry about.
Look, but you still got to drive off, right?
I got to drive off, but that was I had to put that on as to say, and maybe that
you've been exposed to that community, right? You've been exposed. You know how to put that face on, right?
Again, there's shout out to Sharon for making sure that I had good Catholic school education. Appreciate that.
There's certain people within the African American community who didn't have that exposure, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's privilege all it's enough.
Well, is that?
It is.
How so?
That you're able to get out of
for me.
For you, 100%.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, but it's not privilege, because if it were privilege, I wouldn't have had to think about putting that face on for that situation so that the cop does not feel threatened. And that's, I think, in the judicial system, and not even just maybe the judicial system, but in the whole community of law enforcement, for a black man, we have to put on this face of, hey, officer, I'm not a threat to you. actually, I'm really an okay guy. In fact, I might be friends with your son.
Yeah.
I might be friends with your girlfriend. Like there's a lot that I might be, I have to make you feel comfortable with me. That's something that we have to do. Whereas in your position, you wouldn't necessarily have to put forth that much effort.
I agree.
Right. So that right there would be the privilege of what that means. Angela DeCalma just chimed in. Hey, Miss Angelica, she said, for a very long time, I thought this was only an issue for black men. Ladies, that is not true. As a black female, I've been followed into my hotel, and the officer went to the front desk with me to validate.
You're giving her a like off mine.
With the hotel. No, I was making sure I could read the rest of
I like
what she said.
Yeah.
The hotel that I was a guest there. Yes, absolutely. That's a great point, Angela. Unfortunately, it isn't just a black male thing. It's definitely across the board a racial thing. And that's why we're having this conversation. Right, there are privileges that are afforded to individuals based on the color of their skin. And again, like I said, and I wish Miguel were here, but if I got any of my Hispanic, specifically Mexican friends that are here on Facebook, and I'm not being politically incorrect, I specifically am targeting Mexicans specifically because in the United States, I feel like Mexicans are more afforded labored or blue collar positions because unfortunately, the powers that be feel like there's a better labor quality that you get from that ethnicity. So, based on that, you have now been afforded a privilege that you can get a job before other people can.
Come on.
Seriously.
You're saying that Mexicans have privilege for getting jobs?
Yes.
I think that Mexican.
So this was the conversation we were having while we were talking about this in Austin. Mexicans can get a job that's like, so for example, a cousin that's trying to break into the job field, and she wants to work or he wants to work at a hotel and get involved with whatever position at a hotel that they can outside of customer service, right? Like room attending or whatever.
Okay.
Or even in the restaurant industry, right? And it's unfortunate.
You don't think that comes from cheap labor?
Well, I'm sure that's what it is. But that alignment becomes a privilege that's now afforded to an ethnicity because based on the color of the skin. Ethnicity.
Rick, so the reason, and when I texted you back when we were talking about this, I said, can we talk about something else, right? The reason I did that is I think that there's something that came in early politics in America called divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar?
Yep. But go ahead. Let's share it.
What we're having right now is divide and conquer. There's a ruling class in the United States. I think everybody could agree to that. 1% owns 40% of the United States income, right?
Is it 1%?
1%.
Oh, yeah. So we're talking about the 1%ers.
No, we're not talking about. I'll talk about the top 20%.
Okay. All right.
Which is mostly white. Okay. But I think that what they're trying to do, and people have theories also with King. They think that King might have got shot because of this, actually.
Okay.
But when the people like the middle class, the lower class, when they group together, the Mexicans, the blacks, anybody, the immigrants, right? And they start fighting amongst themselves and they call out each other's privileges, then they're not focusing on the people that are actually ruling us.
So, actually, I don't know if you caught the show last week. Maybe you did with Vlad. Vlad was on last week. Vlad was on last week, and he talked about something. He brought up the fact that privileges are really not privileges. They're based on societal norms, social norms, and social norms are what dictates that privilege. Looks like we got a caller in, and just in the nick of time, let's go ahead and get this caller on. Thanks for calling Rick's Room. This is your host, Mr. Rick. You're on the mic with Mike and Rick.
It's Octavio, Rick.
Yo, Octavio, what's going on? So another guy that we work with. What's going on, sir? I appreciate you calling in. Talk to us, man. What you got?
I'm on Facebook here on my computer, so I might be a little delayed. But going back into privilege as far as Hispanics go. And kind of going on to the roles that you were speaking about of the labor roles, I think the hardest part growing back up in Michigan, not necessarily Detroit, but in Lansing, is the roles that I'm trying to get, right? The ones that I'm applying for, the ones that I want to get, not the labor roles, not the cheap labor roles, but the ones I'm actually trying to go get to, can't get them. I think there's times where, actually many times I can account for where I had to walk my resume in person just to show them that, I look just like Yakai.
Right, and based on your name,
and your name's Octavio, and I think
Octavio Hernandez.
Exactly.
So right, they look at the name and it's I got you, definitely.
So I think it's unfair to say that Octavio has a certain privilege because he's Hispanic, right? Because he's not looking for the same roles.
So it's not that I agree with, I see where you're coming from too. I mean, there are roles that there's a lot of privilege that we may have, right? Hispanics may have as far as giving, right? There's a lot of good things that, as far as the work ethic, right? That we as Hispanics put forth in everything we do. But I think there's a big gap of the picture that people paint on Hispanics in the United States. That those are the jobs that we do all the time, but they're not necessarily jobs that we want to do, right? It'd be a different example, right? I'm educated, going for an advanced degree, things like that. I end up in the same workplace as both of you guys did. But in addition, that's the job I went out to get. Versus, there's people with the same names as me, same background that can't get those jobs.
Exactly. And you're right. I mean, that's realistically, there are privileges that are afforded to the Hispanic community, specifically the Mexican community, and it's unfortunate that it might be at a particular class. But by the same token, there is still within that class privileges that are afforded for you based on ethnicity. But as we talked about earlier, when it comes to your name, people look at the name and it's already an assumption that's drawn. There's a privilege that I have with my name being Kenneth R. Lockhart II. Again, it's the only time I'm gonna put the government out there. You cannot call me that. However, based on my name, I get the, he's probably this way, and then they see me that it's different. So I feel you there, Octavio. Thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate that. And no, you weren't delayed at all. So I'm glad you got a chance to actually pay attention to the Facebook post here, and we'll talk about this tomorrow when I get in the office.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate it. Yo, you also can join the conversation, 708-223-8953. We're talking about racial privilege in several different areas. Right now, we're in racial privilege with the judicial system. What is that?
It's accurate.
Right. Is that what
judicial
it is?
System.
Judicial system.
I think.
All right, cool. One of those two. But anyway, so as we were discussing, there's a face that I have to put on when it comes to the judicial system that you don't necessarily have to put on. Sounds like we might have another caller coming in, and again, we appreciate you all being part of this conversation. We'll go ahead and bring on this caller here. What's going on? This is Rick's Room. You're on with Mr. Rick, your host, and on the mic with Mike. Who's calling in?
What's up?
Hey, Matt, is this Matt Owens?
It is Matt Owens.
Matt Owens is calling in. So, Matt, again, like we said, this is one of the biggest influences for having a conversation around privilege, because of, if you haven't got a chance to check out Matt's page, make sure you check out Matt's page. He does a lot to identify and educate on privilege. But Matt, what you got for us, man? What are you calling in?
I think I'm calling in a little bit late here too, but I wanted to go back and sort of what Mike was talking about a little bit about educated sort of white liberals really need to focus on rather than just kind of sitting around and talking about all the privileges that we might have, doing some actual work to sort of blend the gap there between the two privileges. And I also think that when you look at the intersection of class and race, really, because privilege, in my opinion, has a lot to do with access. You have people accessing things like higher education, better paying jobs, healthcare, all of these things. Race and compare it to class, and you look at the makeup of sort of urban poverty and rural poverty in the United States, and bring race into that, you can really see a distinct line where in urban sort of impoverished areas, which are predominantly people of color, how the education system is set up based on tax brackets. And there's, in places like New York and San Francisco and Chicago and Detroit, there are, in between 3 to 5 blocks, you'll have a private school that's predominantly white, and then 5 blocks away, you'll have a school that's predominantly people of color that's very low income. And then when you look at rural poverty, which is predominantly white poverty in the United States, still has people, in the town that I grew up in, which is a really tiny town in Pennsylvania, we had kids bust in from, anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half outside of the little tiny city that I grew up in. were predominantly lower income people that were able to still access, and based on the tax bracket of the small city that we were in, which provided them with better education and more access and all that stuff. So that's kind of just what I wanted to speak to about the intersection of class and race. And but I do agree with Mike that it doesn't do much to sit around and talk about it.
No,
right. We're talking with people that maybe aren't as educated about it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we got to look at what's the end goal here, Matt. Right? Is our end goal to keep talking about who has privilege, or is our end goal for African American youth to stop getting shot by cops? Right?
Right.
I think that one of the problems in the United States right now is division. I think that if people aren't connecting on a human level, people that are going through similar struggles, and that's the reason I brought up the Black Lives Matter and the Trump rally, right? I think it's hard for us as a community to empower each other to get trying to do accomplished, right?
Right.
I think that, and I mentioned MLK for a reason. I think that MLK was very, very successful because he was able to get anybody who felt like they were being judged, or anybody who felt like they were being held back because of their certain structure, their certain social situation. He had all those people rally behind him, right?
Right.
I think that that's the problem in America right now, is that the people in rural America are not connecting with the people in Southside and Chicago.
Well, that is a thing. And Matt, before you go on, man, I appreciate you calling in, but it looks like we're running out of time here. So, but just so you know, Matt, again, thank you for giving the inspiration to the show. We're going to do this again next week, so I anticipate with some more of your opinions and your experiences to share.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate both of you inviting me on. Thank you.
Man, listen, thanks for calling in, Matt, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Again, this is Rick's Room, man. We appreciate you joining in with us. Just really kind of want to make sure that we get a chance to have conversations around things that we need to have conversations about, whether it's breaking down stereotypes or just things that in our society we need to have a discussion around. We're going to have a discussion around it. Real quick, we want to make sure Mind Over Matter sponsoring this show. Make sure you check them out. Receive your 20% off Refreshing Moments Simply Clean Facial, or 20% off of Refreshing Moments Back Treatment from now until December 23rd. Just make sure you mention Rick's Room at check them out, www.momonline.us, and as well check out the Bureau Bar Sundays Affair with Mr. Jeff Timms, offering craft cocktails located at 75 East 16th from 3 to 12, happy hour from 3 to 5, and soulful music stylings by Fathom DJ starting at 5. And make sure you enjoy the Cookout on Wheels. One of our sponsors, the Cookout on Wheels, Miss Latasha Garcia and Mr. Steven Garcia. They're coming to a curb near you. #FriendsFed here. Check them out. They'll be at the Bureau Bar for Sunday's Affair from 6 to 9. And if you happen to mention Rick's Room at the bar, receive half off of your first drink. And check out Color Struck Polish at colorstruckpolish.com. Mr. Mike, I want to thank you so much for being on the show, man. I'm telling you, it becomes addictive. But I appreciate you being on the show, and definitely want to make sure I shout out my one man show, Mr. Al Young, for producing the show, making sure that he has all the facts for us and conversation pieces for us to have. Al Young Enterprises, he's doing image consulting as well as performing arts consulting, captures artist development, and as well as image consulting. Hit him up 773-220-6869. 9869. That's Al Young Enterprises. Check him out, Al Young III, making sure that we sound good and producing this show, Mr. Rick's Room. And if you're tuning in again next week, we're going to continue on to this discussion with racial privilege. Make sure that you share your comments, your thoughts, or give us a call at 708-223-8953. Making way for Miss Dana being Dana. Her show's coming up next. You make sure that you tune in. I got a chance to check her out last week with her. I believe it was Housewives of Naperville. It was a fun show. So make sure that you're tuning in to Dana being Dane here on IntellectualRadio.com, at iHeartRadio as well. Live streaming on Facebook and on YouTube. Appreciate you stopping by Rick's Room. Now get out.